Right, so good morning, and I'm going to say good afternoon and good evening, because anyone else who is not here where it's anywhere else is somewhere else in the world. So clearly good day to wherever you are, and good morning to you, James. Thank you for joining me. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you very much, and thank you for having me here.
Oh, I'm very glad. So obviously, apologies, guys, those who checked in. We are a few minutes late because James and I were just chatting back of house, and you know, this is what happens when you've known someone for such a long time, you haven't seen them for a while, and they've done up amazing things over the years. So obviously, James, you and I have had a quick chat, and you've told me about the amazing stuff you do. I've said in the post, we met at Sandhurst. That was in 2007, which was a journey and a half through those 12 months. And then since which you have just, I saw you on Total Wipeout, and I was like, oh my dear God. And then, of course, being with you on LinkedIn, seeing you launch your own business and obviously growing from there. So tell us all a little bit about what you do now and how the EMJA?
EMJA.
Yeah, came up. There we
Emily
go.
and James. Clearly, it's 10 further years in the army. Then after that, it was time to leave. The fun was over. I decided property would be a good thing to get into. I've been looking at it for some time, and property development, there's something very physically satisfying in that. The sort of the tangible results you come up with from seeing things go from bad to good, and so that's in many ways what drew me in. Plus, Kia is a great income. I definitely want more time and more freedom in my life, because I am the fool who loves going skydiving or rock climbing or snowboarding. And I wasn't quite getting enough of it in the army, so I wanted to do more. Plus, if we're going to have kids at some point, I wanted to make sure I was financially better off for that too, with more time to give. So yes, got into property, went into mentoring in Bristol, and met a business partner there, who is my opposite, small, slightly more delicate, called Emily, who's just much better on the phone than I'll ever be. So we started a business called EMJA. Everyone calls it MJ until I have to explain to them, spell it out why it's called EMJA. And we started playing with residential, and just did our first commercial conversion in Bristol too. So hopefully onwards and upwards.
Nice. I'm sure it will be, if it sounds like it's growing quite fast, because it's only what, 1 year 4 months, was it, I read?
Exactly. 1 year and 4 months. I've got my other business on the side as well, which is again property development, and that's where I'll be holding a few properties, making things like service accommodation, where you make some nice boutique houses for people. And then this one with Emily is flipping properties. So we started off right at the beginning of COVID, where everything went into lockdown. And that definitely slowed things down, but it was still satisfying to come up with a profit at the end of it. So that's where we're going.
I was going to say, good morning from Texas. I do believe, Pete, you are 6 hours behind us. So it is 4:27 there, correct me if I'm wrong, but very good that you can join us. And everyone else, if you're listening, obviously slam in the comments. If you want to grill James about military life, about, Total Wipeout, I am going to keep hitting on that, because that was just phenomenal. And you made that look like a walk in the park. I'm sorry. Or again, the property and the fantastic things he does now. But of course, let's hit on the outdoor adventures, because obviously in the military, one of the big pulls, particularly as an officer, is you do your outdoor education. You do the expeditions, you plan it, you do these trips, you do when you go to your troops. What was the big thing? Was it always the skydiving, or was snowboarding the one?
In terms of my sports, I suppose snowboarding is what I was most passionate about. I got into that when my parents were willing to let me off skis and go on a snowboard, go to the dark side, they always say, just because it looks so cool. It was in the days when they're just beginning to make jumps and things, and you see people go over these things, you think, people can fly. And so that's really what I wanted to get into. And I was a fan of acrobatics. I'm completely the wrong shape for it. I'm 6'6", and at the time, because I was growing so rapidly, my coordination was never spot on either. But I just thought it was cool. So that's what lured me into snowboarding, and it's something I really took a shine to. But I'll never be this at the top of my game in it. So I got into lots of things. I got into lots of snowboarding in the army, lots of climbing, lots of running, a bit of swimming here and there. So, and boxing bizarrely as well. So no, look, just any sport, any kind of new experience. I suppose I'm a bit of a sensation seeker in many ways, and an adventurer.
Yeah, I always remember at Sandhurst, it was like, who's doing that? Oh yeah, Scotty. Oh yeah. It was like no surprise. There was something crazy going on and you were involved, because always this full of life person just wanting to be doing something.
It was fun. It was, yeah. I'm definitely very much more physically orientated than I am intellectually. I could probably say that quite comfortably.
So how are you finding the transition to being the business owner then?
Not bad, actually. I'm quite enjoying it. So I think my nature has always been slightly rough around the edges, never firmly polished. And so I was never really fully cut out for bureaucracy. I loved it. I enjoyed doing my job, and I like to think I was fairly good at it. But I was never really sort of, a perfect fit for it. And I remember when I was doing squadron command at my regiment, walking up to the mess thinking, if I'm here in 6 years' time, still doing this kind of job, still in this place, I just feel I'm missing out on so much in life. And so that was when I realized, right, I must leave the army. So when Lucy, my wife, who clearly we both know very well, got sent out to Brunei after staff college, I thought, well, if I'm going to see Lucy more than 6 weeks a year, now would be a great time to jump into the property world. So that was the time to jump across, and starting the business has been really very satisfying, quite rewarding. This is definitely a slow process, but it's a huge mentality shift. Old school sort of, old money army officer type mentality to getting used to talking openly about money, which was never me. And I never thought I'd be looking for investors and things, but something that's become sort of a big part of the game. So it's definitely been a big mind-opening experience. And you realize, the army is a very different world. There are so many different things out there.
Yeah. Massive world. And for those who are listening who don't know, Lucy, James's wife, lived across me in junior term, so she was literally right next to me. So actually one of the same platoon, and a good friend of mine as well. So absolutely a superstar. And again, completely like James, completely a level of bonkers in terms of wanting to do something. Ski. Is she snowboarding now as well?
No, she knows it. She knows it's the right way to go, but I think she's just she knows I'm too far ahead to keep up with.
She can come with me. I've just started learning how to snowboard. So
perfect.
You can have me. So of course we've got Cynthia, who's joined us, Candy, and again from India. So again, around the world, good day. Happy Tuesday to you all.
Hello.
So see, so if you're amazing, you're interesting, people want to listen.
We've got international. I have no idea.
Oh yes. So we say things change over time. I've got international connections. It's fantastic. So good day to all of you. So obviously, health and well-being. So in terms of business, and from the army, mental well-being is a big challenge, and of course during lockdown, it's been the talk of the town, as it were. Why, from your standpoint, why do you think mental well-being is so fundamental?
I suppose I just read the book that a lot of people read, Sapiens, and he talks a lot about the beginning, about how we mustn't be open in the woods and have a particular way of life. And the world we live in today is nothing like we've evolved to, and therefore I think as a result we do need to take good care of our mental health in order to be able to cope with it. Clearly, I love today, but you can't just live in a world, especially if you're in the city. I just don't see anyone being fully happy in the city unless they can do kind of what we're born to do, which is be physically active. We were initially hunter-gatherers. We were initially that kind of ilk. We were not mathematicians from the beginning, and we don't evolve that quickly. It's only been a few thousand years. So from that point of view, we are supposed to be physically active. We get endorphins from doing exercise for a reason, and mental health is vital to, and that is what creates mental health. And I think therefore, going towards the physical side of it, that's really quite critical to being happy.
Well, physical and mental, they all connect. If you obviously on my post, I talk about all three, and emotional. So the three connect. You can't do one without the other.
No.
As you said, physically active makes you feel better. It also de-stresses. Mental well-being. So you're always connecting to yourself. So what's the, let's say, big thing for you to do now to care for your mental well-being?
So that was another big part of moving into into my own business as well. So going back to the army, we went to staff college. You get promoted to major, you go to staff college. That means the majority of your time isn't going to be sort of in command, and command is very spreadsheet driven and very computer driven still these days. It's going to be doing a lot of time behind a desk, working 9 till 5. Not 9 till 5. If you're doing anything punchy, you might be doing 6 till 10, like I did when I was in certain jobs. And you're forcing time in for fitness. And there comes a point in the army when you might end up trapped in there. You've got kids, you get the army benefits package. It doesn't come in pay. It comes in good schooling. It comes in giving you a house, etc. And suddenly you've got 3 children, and then you are committed. That is your lifeline. I wanted to get out before that. I was getting to the point where I wasn't going to be running around with my hair on fire. I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing as a platoon commander or troop commander. And then when you start getting a job, you'll suddenly move to a new job, and it's all very exciting. It wasn't going to be like that anymore. I wanted to spend more time outdoors. I love walking. I love hiking. I love doing these things. And just breathing fresh air and doing satisfying things where you can look back on the year, have these these very, very real life experiences out in the big wide world. So that's what I'm doing to do it. Getting into my own business where I can control my time, I can control my life. And a big part of it is, being able to do things in working hours and working on the weekends if I need to, or taking work with me to places around the world. Just escaping being told what to do and suddenly being given last minute large jobs, which end up dominating my life.
Yeah. And as somebody who's been self-employed, well, basically I've been self-employed 9 years, either on the side of main jobs and dotting in and out. That sort of balance and control, to have it in your own hands is a definite plus. There are pros and cons to anyone who's listening who thinks about jumping ship. Make the right choice for you, because there are so many pros to owning your own brand and your own business, but you've got to make sure it works for you. And obviously lifestyle, we also talk about work-life balance. So what's your take on a work-life balance? I'm going to start with that one first.
Okay, if you're asking me, you're going to get a fairly vast answer towards, I do love the life balance. I love to make life more work. So, you want to be paid to do the things you enjoy doing. I just clearly get a lot of satisfaction out of properties. That's definitely a good way towards it. And only a few of us get towards the stage where we can become some kind of top gear presenter. But that'd be a nice place to start going. So work-life balance for me at the moment, a good deal of work needs to be done to get the business off the ground. It's definitely not easy. But as you start getting one house, then you get 2, and then you flip some more properties to get some more cash, and you get another house. Suddenly you can start taking a step back. And then you can start looking at sort of guaranteeing yourself a better life. And if I'm to have children soon, I'd love to be in a position where I can make time for them rather than make time for work and try and squeeze them around it. So in terms of work life for me, I need to control my work so I can live my life, which is what we all want to do. It's just very hard. It's just very hard, or at least very alien for many to get there.
Yeah, because most people focus on, for example, this is one thing you don't get as an entrepreneur, which I'm sure you figured out. People always go, I want to finish work and never have to pick up that phone. It's like, no, it doesn't happen. You can't just go and completely leave it. But if you choose to take a Monday afternoon off because you need to go and pick the kids up, as an entrepreneur, you can section that time. And that's the important thing. You can manage your work time. So there's things you'll always be committed to, and you'll always be there for your business. But you can choose, like, for example, I work a full Saturday, but then I'll take a half day or a Wednesday afternoon off because I'm like, I've got nothing else in. It's brilliant.
Yes, I fully agree. It's fantastic. And I can change work just to make things happen. My father wasn't well over the last year. I was able to suddenly drop things and not entirely be there because there's a lot of COVID going, but at least be ready on the phone for lots of things and go visit them and go visit him in hospital, etc. If I was in the army and being deployed somewhere, that clearly would not have been possible. So having the time and the flexibility to do that, it's perfect. And so you can become a better person. Well, I say a better person. You can be more available, help more.
I mean, that was part of my decision for leaving, because obviously we were talking before about me going and the fact I have a flat back, and it was obviously I spent 5 weeks debating my decision, because when I got back to him, I was like, okay, found it was wrong. Now I've got the choice. Do I stay? Do I persevere? Do I leave? What's the pro? What's this? And one of the things that killed me was like, what if I have a niece or nephew or child and I can't pick them up because of my back? And I went, there's my choice. You know, I can choose my health and still have something to manage, or I can choose a career. And of course, I've redeveloped a career, exactly like you've done, a new career, which is bringing a big smile to your face, which is awesome.
I really am enjoying it, just because you have, the big thing, I suppose the biggest challenge is not having a boss to report to. So you've got to set your own timelines, haven't you? And that's definitely the hard bit. So it's definitely, there was definitely a few months of grace where I was rather enjoying just doing what I wanted. I got really into downhill mountain biking until I realized I'm definitely getting a bit older. So I switched to a more steady form. Just being able to do that, have that flexibility and control it is nice. Really, really very nice. But yeah, the biggest challenge, not from jumping ahead here, is creating those deadlines for yourself, making yourself work, and becoming accountable to yourself rather than to other people. When you realize having a job is really quite easy, because almost the fear that drove you of failing to meet deadlines and embarrassing yourself made you really a very efficient person.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because you can either do it with a partner, because creating accountability can either be self-accountable, like you put deadlines in and there's, you know, you have to sort of keep to it. There's a partner, so like a business partner, your wife, you know, that, you know, your loved ones, they can obviously help hold you accountable. And the other way is which you may find at some point, being a coach. I've done it myself at some point. I've gone, I need a coach to coach me, and I need this element. Like I have a writing coach at the minute, because that's the one element of my life that I really need coaching in. And I'm like, I can deal with the other things right now and how that's going, but I need to write better. I'm not going to do this without you. So this is where sometimes coaching comes in, even the short term. If you find your business in 6 months, 12 months, 3 years time plateaus, you might go, actually, I just need a business coach just to give it that edge a bit. Where am I going next? How am I going to grow this? What's next? And that's another option for you. So
realigning,
yes.
Constantly reevaluating and realigning, and then moving in the new correct direction.
And the power, I say, is that objective person to talk to. You know, you might find your partner does everything you need, because that's why you have a partnership. So you can be off, but it's your baby as well. I don't know about you, but I get possessive. It's my baby.
It is, exactly. They say lots of people put their name on their company, because that does really hold them to account, doesn't it? And then suddenly it really is your thing. As you say, having a business partner is really helpful, because suddenly, if she's working harder than me, I think, crikey, I better go on with it. So I've got to pull my weight, and then vice versa. And if we sort of both agree on our targets, you're not just letting yourself down; you're letting her down too. And as you mentioned, having a mentor has been very good too. So I alluded to it earlier. I met Emily on the mentoring group, who is someone based in Bristol, Susanna Cole, if anyone's interested. Yeah. And going on there, having those weekly conference calls, suddenly saying, what have we done this time? What have we done this time? Being told you need to get a move on. There is that, I suppose, that serving side in all of us, where we do sometimes like to be told what to do. We do like to be given direction. Which is something I hate to admit, but sometimes really does help. Maybe it's just too much time in the army. I'm still shaking that off. But having someone to answer to does something I find definitely moves me.
But it's also a case of, otherwise you might go, I should just want to do the fun bit, you know, and it's so easy to get to, this is fun. I'm going to just do this.
That's one. There's a thing called wealth dynamics, which some of us I'm sure have heard of, and I came up on there. The person, it assesses your personality type, where you're better suited to being out in the limelight and showing off, like Oprah Whitney, or whether you're good at deal making. Apparently, that Trump's the example on that one, or whether you're good at sort of like the more back of office stuff, working on the computer, making things work, problem solving. I'm almost psychopathically a star. So yeah, it's all look at me, and very much the same for Emily, although she got more of the supporter side of things, which I regularly remind her of. You support me, but that's what I came up with. So as you say, we've all got things we rather do and things we'd rather not do. Yeah. So I'm beginning to realize I do like going out and meeting people. I do like going out and seeing the projects we make. I think I've definitely got more of an ego than is healthy, and so putting things, and so I love seeing the results and seeing my accomplishments and going and meeting people. And I'm trying not to talk about my favorite subject, but a little bit of others. So we're clearly trying to get we're trying to fill the vacuum of our lesser interesting things. Something I'm still good at because the army does make you do it all. But for example, getting virtual assistants and things to fulfill that part of it, and to the team to support you in those areas, is definitely a central part of it. So that way you can just focus on the things you enjoy.
Yeah. Have you ever done the 16 personalities, so you know what sort of personality you are?
No, that's another one I should do.
I'll send you that one. I'll send it over for you, because then when you know what sort of personality you are, you know how people work with you. It's obviously whether introvert, extrovert. Obviously, you're an extrovert. We've got that one. But then, of course, if you know what your partner is, you can know how best they want to work with you as well. So, of course, it's how they need. So, although you could be the same personality or very similar sort of characteristics, you can have different personality types. It's like when you go into your color energies, your conscious and subconscious. So your conscious are like now what you're dialing up and where you're consciously sitting. Your subconscious is when you're most relaxed at home and you're kind of chilled, and which can change. You dial them up and change them and things like this. It's quite fascinating. But I'll send you some stuff on it after.
Yeah, that'd be good to see. Those tests especially, and I talked about wealth dynamics as well earlier, which is another one. I can never be sure how accurate it is, because when I do the test, am I speaking instinctively, or am I giving the answers of the person I'd like to be? So, for example,
for those ones, you should respond. So if you automatically go, A, B, C, I think C, don't think about it. Just go with initial reactions, because if you overthink it, that's when your conscious will take over. And that's where, for example, for me, I'm very analytical, and I'll go, okay, my conscious says, let's process this. Where actually my subconscious dominant color is actually much more green, much more sort of homey, and like, we can do this. So it's always go with the first thing. Don't try and overthink it because you're trying to find out who you truly are. And if you consciously think about it, then of course you're controlling yourself.
Yes, exactly. So it's hard. In some ways, I can't be sure it is always my conscious. There's always going to be, I suppose, a slight hint of your conscious side intervening in there. Yeah. But I suppose, is it your chimp? You'll let your chimp answer the questions.
Your emotion. No, that's the thing. You go from your emotion brain to your human brain. Well, then you get your monkey, which is your chatter.
Yes, exactly. It could be him answering the questions.
Yeah, we don't want him because he doesn't give logic. He's illogical.
He just wants to go home and eat.
He wants to tell you to eat. But we've got Carlos who's joined us from Sao Paulo. So lovely. See, definitely worldwide. So,
yeah.
Right.
Good morning in England.
How has, obviously the pandemic, I know you've always been into your fitness and everything, in staying physically active, and, how has your physical fitness been affected by the pandemic?
I'm quite fortunate in that, I'm in the construction industry. So that's been allowed to continue throughout the UK. Clearly, there were some manufacturing issues, which meant a lot of material supplies were slowed down, but I've been able to go back and forth. So that's been all right. I did get COVID right at the beginning. So this time last year, I had COVID. So that did put me in a house for 3 weeks. But we are given a military quarter, a military house, just by Salisbury Plain. So and there is a garden. So on that point, I had I can't pretend I didn't have a better lockdown than many. I was very fortunate, as we both were. So lockdown for me, I suppose, me personally, has been all right. Therefore, physical fitness has been okay. You walk out the house, turn left, avoid all the military signs and areas, and just go for a long run, then come back in. And one of the biggest things for me in terms of mental health is being able to sleep, going to bed and going straight to sleep. Wanting to sleep, and then getting up in the morning having had a good sleep. Don't lay around too long in the morning. Get some ownership, as that will keep the day structured. But the moment I'm not doing enough in the day, which lockdown was liable to do, and I'm not sleeping well at night, I suddenly realize I'm getting something wrong, and that's why I start going into a slight spiral. So I've got to fill the day with activity. So a good long run or bike rides, or, because Lucy is a CrossFit fanatic now, a WOD, workout of the day.
box.
Exactly, something like that. A good degree of physical fitness, a good degree of work, and maybe a board game, Carcassonne. That's fun, and that would usually give me a sort of a good appetite. That would usually give me a good day. You need something to break up your days, make them different. But getting those sort of getting some mental work, getting some good physical work in that day, and definitely some time outdoors every day is what helps my physical fitness keep going.
Yeah. So would you say it's lower than it was beforehand, slightly?
It was better. There was more running to be done. So I say better. I was big into climbing. I'm big into climbing, particularly in the winter months. So there are bouldering centres all over Bristol. I don't know why. Bristol seems to become sort of the indoor climbing mecca of the UK. So I was getting climbing strong. So we started lockdown. Clearly, we couldn't go climb anymore. We couldn't go to the bouldering centres. So my physical my physical muscle strength started going down, but my running, my endurance clearly went up because I could go out and play on a bike, or I could go out there running, and so aerobically, it certainly boosted, which is a good basic form of fitness to work everything else on top. And then clearly, strength, things like climbing, went down. A very long answer.
So give it a month and you'll be back in the climbing centre again. So
I think so. Yes, as soon as it's all open again, and you're not going to be going to some super spreader centre, I'll be good to go climbing again and start getting strong again. So, well, I say stronger compared to non-strong me. I'm still like going. Yeah, you're like a foot tall. You're like, like. Yeah. It's good for going around problems when you're climbing.
Yeah,
you've got a hole here you can't use, just reach above it.
That's the thing. Those are watching. If me and James, I don't even come up to his shoulder. That's how little I am in comparison to his 6'6". Okay, so and I'm probably shrinking. I'm getting old, but we're
a long way yet, Liz. Don't you worry.
So obviously, with your fit, you said it's how I've got a bit of an ego. You sort of. But self-confidence. So we'll call it self-confidence because ego can have a negative connotation. So
thank you.
I find it quite endearing because I always just find that it's kind of really good energy, and it kind of brings it. You watch it, and it's like we were saying at Sandhurst, the smile, the energy, and it's all really, really positive. So why would you say having some level of self-confidence or even body confidence is important when obviously in a professional career?
I really feel the differences. Clearly I'm not. I'm still sort of one personality here, but if I've had a good, successful run of life, if I feel good, especially after endorphins and things have boosted, which comes from exercise, I'll be walking around with a much better posture, with my head held fairly high, very happy to talk to people and give my opinions on something. If I feel I've been slacking off over the last few days, then I feel I'm a much more shy person, much less to be shy. But I seem to forget what I might have achieved the year before. It's much more about who I feel at the time. So going back to the question as what fitness does for, I suppose, what was it? Can you ask the question again?
Why do you think self-confidence is important within a professional career?
Oh, vital. So yeah, when I've got self-confidence, it definitely makes a much bigger difference. You might have a phone you need to pick up. If you're not very self-confident, you might still be quite tense about picking it up and calling the people, because you get told no a lot in this world, and you just want to get used to it. If you're self-confident, you can just shake it all off very easily. And again, going back to the physical side of it, if I'm happy, if I feel healthy, then there's no problem with that. If you're confident, it's absolutely fine. Just pick it up. Second thought, there's no time titivating or wasting time. I'm thinking, how am I going to do this call? Just pick it up and get straight on with it. If you're not self-confident, if you haven't got that, then you're going to waste time. You might go have an additional cup of tea. You might think these are all very harmless things, but they are eating into your day. It's not just a case of doing something, realizing you've got a problem and going straight to the solution. You realize you've got a problem and then you start worrying about it. Then, as I say, you might go make a cup of tea, which is a very nice thing to have. And then you think, I better do something about this. And surely enough, you've done a load of other things, great, but you haven't actually handled the problem. Self-confidence means you'll just get straight on with it.
Or just be willing to actually go, what do I have to do? And actually work through it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and just working through it.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you know, you're confident there'll be an outcome that you can handle it, then you'll keep going through it. You'll enjoy it. You won't be hiding from it. And that's a big thing you learn in the army as well. You're constantly standing up in front of people. You've had very little time maybe to prepare orders or anything like that on attack. If you're confident in it, then that will bounce off on other people too. If you have a team below you and you seem confident about it all, they will seem confident. If you seem timid, then they're going to think, even if it's subconsciously timid about it or unconfident, they're going to feel it. They're going to think, well, clearly something's not right. It's just that subconscious awareness. People pick it up. It's not something you can physically fully hide. People will note it. So self-confidence is vital for your own efficiency. But also, if you're going to have a team, you need to. It's much more effective in terms of leading them and keeping them confident too.
Yeah. And any business negotiations, or when you go to an investor, if you haven't got the self-confidence in what you're asking them to invest in, they ain't going to invest.
Yeah. Why would they be confident in you if you're not? You're supposed to be the subject matter expert they are entrusting their money with.
Yeah.
You've got to be.
You got to know your shit. Just lay
100%.
So obviously you and I can talk all day, and a good thing. But what's one bit of advice that you would give to others that they should be doing in terms of like their well-being and things like that?
I think balance is the key thing, particularly for me. So don't just focus on one thing. Don't become obsessed with one thing. I definitely have an addictive personality, and it does start to wear at you. I think force yourself to get up on time in the mornings. Get your 8 hours sleep a night. That's great. But force yourself to get up in the mornings. Do at least one piece of exercise a day, and that is at least your mental break to get on with the rest of your work, to basically get on with things. If I don't do exercise, I become more sluggish at work. I feel it. I've noticed it. I know that happens. Just having that variety, food, decent food, decent amounts of work, and broken up with decent breaks, social breaks, and definitely physical exercise, it will just divide the day up much more neatly. You can't just focus on one thing. Otherwise, your mind will become increasingly zombie-like, and therefore more sluggish and ineffective at work.
Perfect. Sounds like a perfect bit of advice.
Thank you. I should have rehearsed that, and I could have got that trim.
I'll send you the recording. You can practice for any other features, sort of slide that
in the mirror. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. I'll write that down.
So I'm going to ask you one question about you before we finish. Who has been the biggest influence on your life?
Individual throughout the entire life. That's very hard. I could put it into phases.
Okay.
Okay, brilliant. So at first, I had an older sister. I grew up in sort of, gone the military side of things, and I grew up in with my father was in the military too. So we moved around the country a lot. I had my 2 sisters and my mother. Somebody who shaped my life very earlier on was, I think, my older sister, Alanda. So she is a very physical person. She was UK #1 for biathlon, which meant, when you go Nordic skiing, you go shooting. And she was very nearly in the Olympics, apart from it was that year 2008-ish when people were really tightening up the budgets. And so not everyone got sent to the Olympics, but she only did that for 2 years. And she's an incredible swimmer. And so it was just trying to keep up with her as a younger brother. Yeah. And then clearly I was 3 years younger, so there's a good age gap, trying to keep up with her. And then suddenly her realizing that actually, being a boy, I was suddenly getting some kind of physical advantage on certain things we were doing, made her work even harder, means that I think that's a big reason where my physical mentality has come from, my need for exercise. So she was a big shaper from the beginning. Yeah. And then going on to other places, you pick up the occasional hero. Another chap was a chap called Andy M. He's a man who I met through the military when I was at school. Again, this goes back onto the physical side of things, very physically orientated, where he just made me sort of step up to the next level of fitness, to the point where I'm able to do ultra marathons now. I realize no distance is too far, or no form of he has so much focus on charisma and leadership. A lot of that came from him and my mentality when I went into the army as well. When it comes to, say, the financial side of life and a bit of and a desire to work and not be good in debating, conversation and business, that's my father. He's always been very good with his money. He's always been very savvy. He's always been quite tight, I'm going to be honest, with his pennies. But I learned a lot of that from him. So I suppose my natural astuteness for finance and looking after money came from him. So those are 3 big ones. There are many more people who have had a big influence, but those 3, I think, are certainly 3 big influences on my life that have shaped who I've become today.
Well, they sound awesome.
Thank you.
I'm just smiling for you. I'm like. So on that happy note of hearing about awesome people and some great advice, thank you, James, for joining. Obviously, the best way to contact you is through your email or website.
Yes.
Do you have a website?
I do. Is there? I've not used this type of thing. Is there a chat on this thing I can stick it in on, or
What you can do is, if you send it over to me, I will make sure it's in the comments, because also we're on YouTube, as well as I will make sure it goes on Anchor and across the board as well, so it will be out there. But of course, obviously, Emja. Yes, I got it.
Emily and James.
I got it. 30 minutes into
it. Maybe we should change our name.
Thank you, Jane, for joining me, and thank you guys for listening and dropping us from around the world. Hope you have an awesome rest of your, I think, Tuesday for everyone. Obviously, in India, enjoy your evening, and yeah, have a great day.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's been a good, invigorating morning.